Arkansas at Memphis. Storylines to know, Arkansas is looking to bounce back right now, while Memphis looks for a signature win for their playoff resume. So Arkansas started off the year with a 2-0 record. They were on the losing end of a shootout this past week against number 17 Ole Miss, losing 41-35. The Razorbacks were on the road once again this week and looking to take down an undefeated Memphis squad. Memphis, meanwhile, like I said, is trying to stamp themselves as legitimate playoff contenders this year. They were my pick to win the American this year. If they win, it'll be their first 4-0 start on the season since 2019. And that year, Dalton, in 2019, that was the last time Memphis finished the year as the highest-ranked Group of 5 team, and they lost in the Cotton Bowl to Penn State in a game actually that I was in attendance for in that game. Micah Parsons went nuclear in that game for Penn State. It was the best game I think I've ever seen a defensive player have. And Journey Brown, the running back for Penn State, unfortunately is no longer playing football. He had a great game too. But that was the last time that year, the last time that Memphis was the highest-ranked Group of 5 team. So they're trying to make it another year this year where they could be in the playoff this year.
Well, this is a big story, and the American Conference is really a huge story. When you look at the opportunity Memphis has here, when you talk about USF beating Florida a couple weeks ago, Tulane has wins over Northwestern and Duke, and they're playing Ole Miss this week. We'll get to that game in a bit. Army beat Kansas State, right? Navy's got a really good football team. You look, this American Conference, the signature wins obviously matter a lot, and you still have to win the conference. You really are competing now, let's say, with teams, in the Group of 5 outside the conference as well, right? UNLV and whoever wins the MAC or the Sun Belt, right? So I think when you talk about this signature win and the consideration that you could get as beating an SEC team if you eventually win the American, that's big time. That's really big. I think it's these wins that the American are racking up against the Power 4. They're bigger than just about any other wins that, Ohio beat West Virginia. That's a solid one, but they're bigger than just about any other wins that these teams are getting, especially when you talk about, again, teams in the SEC. And you've already seen, again, USF beat Florida. Tulane's got an opportunity against Ole Miss. And if Memphis can get this win right here, it's big time for the rest of the season and their chances to be selected down the line for a playoff spot.
So you have the Arkansas offense with a quarterback that Ryan Nelson called Taylor Green is awesome, according to Ryan Nelson. I completely agree. Taylor Green is one of the most electric players in college football. How will Memphis try to handle both him and the run game for Arkansas?
Yeah, electric players in an electric offense in this offense, under Bobby Petrino and what he's done the last year plus with them. And I think a big thing for Memphis here is if you let Arkansas have balance, you're going to have a problem, right? You want to make Green drop back and throw the football. Now, he can throw the football vertically, no question, but sometimes horizontally and underneath in those obvious drop back situations, he won't hurt you quite as much. He did have 2 turnover-worthy plays last week against Ole Miss, but he still had them within 20 yards of winning that ball game before the fumble at the end. The thing for me with Arkansas's offense is if you let them run the edges, I don't think their interior offensive line is great when it comes to run blocking, but if you let them run off the edges, you're going to have a real problem with Taylor Green and with Mike Washington Jr. in the backfield, off-tackle running under Bobby Petrino since the start of last year. 27th in rushing grade, 16th in yards per carry, 12th in touchdowns, 19th in explosive run rate. They're basically a top 20 team running off tackle, and they do it in kind of a unique way. So, we have it categorized in our system as pull leads, basically those pin pull concepts where you're pulling front side offensive linemen out to the edge, right? You're getting a lot like Kyle Shanahan does in his offense where you've got maybe tight ends or receivers coming down, chipping down on those defensive ends, and then you got guards and tackles pulling out to that same side. This is how Arkansas does it. They run those plays at the second highest rate in the country. They do it with Taylor Green on the keeper. They do it with Mike Washington getting out on the edge. If you let this team in Arkansas start running east and west and they get those pin pull concepts going, you're going to have a real problem both A, with their run game and just those athletes getting out there, but B, the play action game that comes along with it, the read option game with Green that comes on the backside of it. Very, very dangerous run game is where it starts here for Bobby Petrino. I think Memphis defensive ends and linebackers need to be very conscious of keeping contain in this game. Ole Miss didn't even really do it last week when you look at keep and contain on Taylor Green especially. This is a tough run game to defend. It's a unique run game to defend, and if they get into it and they have balance in this offense this week, Memphis is in trouble.
So Taylor Green is one of the most electric quarterbacks in the country. One of the most electric quarterbacks in the Group of 5, in my opinion, is Memphis quarterback Brendan Lewis, the Nevada transfer, who has been phenomenal so far with Memphis. He was great last year with the Wolfpack too. Really, I'm looking at can he exploit this Arkansas secondary. So last year, Arkansas had the 7th worst coverage grade in the Power 4 with only a 61 coverage grade on the season. Their secondary did look much better in their first 2 wins over Alabama A&M and Arkansas State, but those same issues reared their ugly head this past weekend against Ole Miss. The Razorbacks had only a 52.4 coverage grade in the loss to Ole Miss, even though the Rebels were on a backup quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss. Arkansas has another difficult road test this week against the Memphis Tigers. So Brendan Lewis last year had a 90.1 PFF grade at Nevada. This year, he has an 86.2 PFF grade, a top 20 mark in the country, 86.1% adjusted completion rate. Basically, your completion percentage plus any drops your receivers have. So he's been on target for over 86% of his passes. The only quarterback who's been on target more is Julian Sayin, the Ohio State quarterback. He's the only quarterback in America who has been more accurate than Brendan Lewis so far this year. So against an Arkansas secondary where you saw the same warts that you saw last year, can Brendan Lewis take advantage of it in this game too?
No, I think the big thing to me you talk about with Lewis is the fact that this year he's hitting deep shots. Yeah. And against this Arkansas secondary that we saw last year and then we saw last week against Ole Miss, not great when it comes to defending the deep ball, right? So you're looking at Brendan Lewis right now with a 92.5 deep passing grade just outside the top 20 in the country. He's going to look to take shots, especially with Cortez Braum as number 1 receiver who came with him from Nevada. You have Jamari Hawkins underneath as more of the underneath yak guy in the slot. I think what you're really talking about here is Arkansas. You know, we said it last week. Until this Arkansas secondary can just keep things in front of them, they're going to keep getting in shootouts. And they're going to win some of those shootouts. They're going to lose some of those shootouts because that's just how those types of games go. We saw it last week. It can come down to one fumble. And yes, Taylon Green was driving down to tie the game, but one mistake in those games on offense can really cost you. They didn't get stops last week. It cost them the game against Ole Miss. If they can't do it again this week, especially on the deep ball and in the secondary, you have a problem. They're trying to revamp this thing, but it's tough.
So after losing last week against Ole Miss, will Arkansas bounce back this week, or will Memphis get a massive win for their playoff resume?
I do really like Taylon Green, and I like this backfield duo, him and Mike Washington back there. I think their offense is really good. I think they're going to have balance. This is a fantastic football game, and the fact that it's at Memphis, there's going to be a lot of hype. All right, you got 2 schools very nearby each other. It's at Memphis. Memphis looking for a huge win, but I do think we're going to get a good amount of points in this game. I think eventually Arkansas's run game wins the day, and Green makes enough big plays, more so than Lewis. I'm taking Arkansas 30-24.
Okay, I have Arkansas winning this game as well, 35-30. It should be a high-scoring game. I think Brendan Lewis will have a lot of big-time throws against that Arkansas secondary, but I think Memphis' defense will have some difficulties containing Taylon Green as both a runner and as a passer. I think Arkansas bounces back from its shootout loss to Ole Miss last week with a shootout win over Memphis this week. So I have 35-30 Arkansas taking down the Memphis Tigers and bouncing back from their loss to Ole Miss.